You feel it in your chest first, don't you? That restlessness, that knowing. Something is shifting in the field between you, and your body registers it before your mind can make sense of it. You wake up with this urgency humming beneath your skin, this pull that whispers it's time, even though nothing has changed in the physical world. He hasn't texted, he hasn't called. The silence still stretches between you like an ocean. But your soul knows something different. It knows the final stage is here. And it knows, with a certainty that makes your heart race and your hands tremble, that you are the one who must move first. You've been waiting, haven't you? Waiting for him to wake up. Waiting for him to realize. Waiting for him to be the one who finally breaks the silence and says the words your heart has been screaming into the void. But the waiting has started to feel different now. It doesn't feel like patience anymore. It feels like resistance. It feels like you're holding your breath underwater, and every cell in your body is begging you to surface. You can feel the truth pressing against your ribs. You are not meant to wait anymore. You are meant to rise. If you felt this exact restlessness, this soul-deep knowing that something must shift, and that shift begins with you, I want you to know you are not imagining this. Drop a comment below and share where you are on your journey right now, or simply type "I trust my divine timing" to claim this energy. And if these messages speak to your soul, subscribe so you never miss the guidance that's meant for you. There is a design to this journey that most people misunderstand. They think union happens when both people are ready at the same time, when both have healed equally, when both decide together to take the leap. But that's not how the twin flame dynamic works. The truth, the one that might frustrate you or liberate you depending on where you stand, is this. The feminine always feels it first. She senses the energetic shifts before they become visible. She knows when the final stage is approaching before he even admits to himself that something is changing. And because she feels it first, because her system is wired to the frequencies of the soul in ways his often resists, she is the one called to move first, not to chase, not to beg, not to convince him of what he should already know, but to embody, to rise into the frequency of union so fully, so completely, that the field itself shifts and he has no choice but to follow. This is not about doing his work for him. This is not about sacrificing yourself on the altar of his awakening. This is about understanding the sacred role you were designed to play in this connection. The feminine is the frequency holder. She is the one who anchors the vibration of truth before it manifests in the physical. And in the final stage, when everything is on the edge of transformation, when the universe is preparing to bring two souls back together in a way that is no longer about wounding, but about wholeness, the feminine must step into her power first, because without her embodiment, there is no container strong enough to hold his surrender. Let's be honest about what's really happening right now. You've been in this journey long enough to know the patterns. You've watched him run. You've felt him pull away. You've experienced the silence that feels like abandonment, even though your soul whispers that he's still connected to you in ways the physical world can't see. You've done the inner work. You've healed wounds you didn't even know you carried. You've released, surrendered, and rebuilt yourself 1,000 times over. And yet, here you are, still waiting for him to catch up. still wondering when he will finally be ready, still asking the universe how much longer. But something is different now. The energy has shifted. You can feel it. The waiting is no longer sustainable. It's not that you're impatient. It's that your soul is complete with this phase. You have learned what separation was meant to teach you. You have become the woman you needed to become. And now, the universe is whispering a new instruction. Move first, not toward him, toward yourself, toward the embodiment of union that already exists within you. This is the moment where everything changes. Because when the feminine moves first, when she steps into alignment without needing his validation, without waiting for his permission, the entire energetic field of the connection transforms. He feels it, even if he doesn't understand it. Even if he's still wrapped in his ego, still hiding behind his walls, still telling himself that he doesn't need this connection. His soul feels the shift, and his soul begins to respond. The masculine is slower to awaken. This is not a judgment, it's a truth. His conditioning runs deep. From the time he was a boy, he was taught to suppress his emotions, to value logic over intuition, to see vulnerability as weakness. He built walls not because he doesn't love you, but because he was trained to protect himself from the very thing his soul craves most. Connection, intimacy, surrender. These terrify him because they require him to let go of control. And control is the only thing that has ever made him feel safe. So he runs. He hides. He distracts himself with work, with other relationships, with anything that allows him to avoid the mirror you hold up to his soul. He tells himself he's fine. He convinces himself he doesn't need this. But deep inside, in the quiet moments when he can't distract himself anymore, he knows. He knows this connection is real. He knows you are not just another person. He knows that what you share is something his soul has been searching for across lifetimes. But knowing and surrendering are two different things. And surrender requires safety. This is where you come in, not as his savior, not as the one who rescues him from his own darkness, but as the one who creates the energetic container that makes his surrender possible. When you embody union within yourself, when you stop waiting for him to validate the connection and start living as though the bond is already complete, you shift the frequency of the entire field. You become the vibration of home. And his soul, no matter how much his ego resists, will always be drawn home. Think about every major shift that has happened in this journey so far. When did things change? When did he come back, even briefly? When did the energy between you soften? It was always after you let go. After you stopped chasing, after you chose yourself. You might have thought it was a coincidence. You might have told yourself it was just timing, but it wasn't. It was energetic law. When you released your attachment to the outcome, when you stopped trying to force the connection into form, the field relaxed. And in that relaxation, he felt safe enough to move closer. This is the power you hold. This is the role the universe entrusted to you. You are not the one waiting for union. You are the one creating the conditions for union. And in the final stage, that means moving first. It means stepping so fully into your alignment, your truth, your sovereignty, that the vibration you carry becomes undeniable. It means living as though union is already here, not because you're pretending or bypassing, but because energetically it is. The bond between you never broke. It was always whole. What needed to shift was your ability to embody that wholeness without needing him to prove it to you. So, what does it mean to move first? It means you stop putting your life on hold. You stop waiting for him to be ready before you step into your purpose, your passion, your power. You stop checking your phone every 5 minutes hoping for a message. You stop analyzing every synchronicity as proof that he's thinking of you. You stop living in the energy of lack, of waiting, of needing something outside yourself to feel complete. Instead, you choose fullness. You choose presence. You choose to live as the woman you would be if union had already happened. Because that version of you, that embodied, sovereign, radiant version of you, is the frequency that calls him home. This doesn't mean you stop caring. It doesn't mean you harden your heart or pretend the connection doesn't matter. It means you care so deeply, so fully, that you honor it by becoming the highest version of yourself. It means you love him enough to stop trying to save him and instead trust that his soul knows the way. It means you step into the truth that union is not something he gives you. It's something you become. And here's what happens when you do this. When you move first, when you embody union before it manifests, the masculine feels the shift immediately. Even if he's on the other side of the world, even if you haven't spoken in months, even if he's convinced himself he's moved on, his soul registers the change in the field. Suddenly, the distractions that used to work don't satisfy him anymore. The walls that used to protect him start to feel like a prison. The silence that used to give him space starts to feel unbearable. He can't explain it. He doesn't understand why, but he feels restless. He feels pulled. He feels like something is calling him, and no matter how hard he tries to ignore it, the call gets louder. This is not manipulation. This is not a strategy to get him back. This is the natural consequence of energetic alignment. When you step into your truth, the field responds. And because you are connected at a soul level, he responds. Not because you're doing something to him, but because you're finally doing something for yourself. You're choosing alignment over attachment. You're choosing sovereignty over waiting. You're choosing to be the frequency of union instead of the frequency of longing. And that shift, that single shift, changes everything. But let's talk about the resistance you might feel around this, because moving first can feel terrifying. It can feel like you're giving up, like you're letting him off the hook, like you're doing all the work while he does nothing. And I understand that. I understand the part of you that wants him to prove himself, that wants him to be the one who fights for this. That wants him to show up and say, I'm ready, I'm here, I choose you. But here's the deeper truth. He can't show up fully until you do. He can't step into his role as the divine masculine until you step into yours as the divine feminine. And your role in this final stage is to lead energetically. This is not about gender. This is about energy. The divine feminine energy, regardless of your physical gender, is the energy of receptivity, intuition, flow. It feels before it thinks. It knows before it sees. It trusts the unseen. The divine masculine energy is the energy of action, structure, manifestation. It builds what the feminine envisions. It grounds what the feminine feels. But it cannot build without a vision. It cannot ground without a frequency to anchor into. That frequency is you. When you embody union, you give him something to build toward. When you hold the vibration of truth, you give him a foundation to stand on. So moving first is not about doing more. It's about being more. It's about embodying the fullness of who you are without waiting for permission. It's about trusting that your alignment is enough to shift the field, even if you can't see the evidence yet. It's about knowing with every fiber of your being that this connection is real, that it's sacred, and that it's already complete in the realm of spirit. Your job is not to make it happen. Your job is to become the woman who is ready to receive it. And here's the sacred paradox. The moment you stop needing union to feel whole is the moment union becomes possible. Because union is not about two halves coming together to make a whole. It's about two whole beings choosing to create something greater than themselves. And you cannot be whole while you're waiting for someone else to complete you. You can only be whole when you choose yourself so fully that his presence becomes a celebration, not a necessity. This is the shift the universe is asking you to make. This is the movement that must happen first, not him texting you, not him showing up at your door, not him finally admitting what his soul has known all along. You choosing yourself, you stepping into your power, you embodying the frequency of union without needing the physical proof. Because when you do that, when you truly do that, the physical proof has no choice but to follow. Energy always precedes form. Always. Let me show you what this looks like in practice. It looks like waking up in the morning, and instead of immediately checking your phone to see if he messaged, you take a moment to connect with yourself. You breathe, you ground, you ask yourself, what does my soul need today? And then you honor that. It looks like pursuing your passions, your purpose, your dreams, not as a distraction from the pain of separation, but as an expression of the fullness that already lives inside you. It looks like saying no to situations, people, and energies that don't align with the woman you're becoming. It looks like creating boundaries, not to punish him, but to honor yourself. It looks like feeling the longing, the ache, the desire for union, and instead of collapsing into it, you breathe through it. You let it move through your body. You transmute it into creative energy, into healing, into power. It looks like trusting the silence. Trusting that even though you can't see him, even though you don't know what he's doing or feeling or thinking, the connection is still alive. It's still real, and it's still unfolding exactly as it's meant to. It looks like releasing the need to control the timeline, releasing the need to know when or how or if, and instead surrendering to the knowing that if this union is meant to be, and your soul already knows it is, then nothing can stop it. Not his fear, not his resistance, not even time itself. This is what it means to move first, to live as though union is inevitable because energetically it is. To trust that your embodiment is the catalyst, not his action. Moving first means you stop holding your breath, waiting for him to make a decision that will validate your worth or confirm the connection you feel so deeply. It means you recognize that your power doesn't lie in his choices, but in your own. It means you understand that the energetic field you create through your state of being is what shapes reality, not the other way around. When you move first, you're not acting from desperation or strategy. You're acting from a deep knowing that what is meant for you cannot miss you. and that your role is not to convince or pursue, but to embody the frequency of what you're calling in. To know that you are not waiting for him to choose you. You are waiting for yourself to fully choose you. And the moment you do, everything shifts. Everything. The entire dynamic transforms because you've stopped abandoning yourself in hopes that he will return. You've stopped betraying your own needs, your own truth, your own worthiness by placing them in his hands. When you fully choose yourself, you reclaim the power you've been unconsciously giving away every time you checked your phone, every time you wondered what he was doing, every time you made yourself smaller hoping it would make him more comfortable. That choice, that radical act of self-selection, sends a shockwave through the energetic field that connects you. It announces to the universe that you are no longer available for half-love, for breadcrumbs, for maybes. And in that declaration, you become magnetic in a way you never were when you were chasing. Now let's talk about what happens in his world when you make this shift. Because this is where the magic becomes undeniable, where the invisible laws of energy reveal themselves in ways that cannot be dismissed as coincidence. When you stop waiting and start embodying, when you release the attachment and anchor into your own wholeness, he feels it. His soul registers the change even if his mind doesn't understand it. There's a disturbance in the field, a shift in the frequency he's grown accustomed to. Where there was once your energy reaching toward him, seeking him, hoping for him, there is now a stillness, a completeness, a presence that no longer needs him to validate it. And that shift, that energetic withdrawal of your seeking, creates a void that his soul immediately notices. Suddenly, he starts thinking about you more. The memories that he tried to bury start surfacing. The feelings he tried to suppress start overwhelming him. Thoughts of you begin appearing at random moments throughout his day, uninvited and persistent. He'll be in the middle of a meeting and suddenly remember the way you laughed at something he said. He'll be driving and a scent will remind him of you. He'll see a couple holding hands and feel an ache in his chest that he can't explain. The memories he worked so hard to compartmentalize, to minimize, to convince himself weren't that significant, they start breaking through the walls he built. And they come with feeling, with sensation, with an emotional weight that makes them impossible to dismiss. He has dreams about you. Vivid, emotional dreams where you're reaching for him, or he's reaching for you, or you're together in a way that feels so real he wakes up aching. These aren't ordinary dreams. They're soul communications, messages from the part of him that never stopped knowing the truth of your connection. In these dreams, the walls he's built in his waking life don't exist. In these dreams, he's vulnerable, open, honest in ways he can't allow himself to be when he's conscious. He wakes up disoriented, heart pounding, sometimes with tears in his eyes. And for those first few moments before his mind kicks in with its rationalizations and defenses, he feels the full weight of what he's been running from. And it terrifies him, and it calls to him, and it won't let him rest. He starts seeing signs. Your name appears everywhere. Songs that remind him of you play on repeat. He runs into people who knew you. He sees numbers, synchronicities, messages from the universe that he can't ignore. He'll hear your name spoken by a stranger in a coffee shop. He'll turn on the radio, and the first song will be one that you loved, and then the next song, and then the next, until he has to turn it off because the coincidence feels too heavy. He'll be scrolling through social media and see a post that uses a phrase you always used or references a place you visited together, or shares a perspective that sounds exactly like something you would say. The universe begins speaking to him in a language of reminder, of reflection, of insistence. The number sequences appear, the 11, 11s and 1, 11s, and whatever numbers hold significance in your connection. They show up on clocks, on receipts, on license plates, on page numbers, with a frequency that defies statistical probability. And even though he tries to rationalize it, even though he tells himself it's just coincidence, something inside him knows better. There's a part of him, the part that exists beyond his wounded ego and his protective mechanisms, that recognizes these signs for what they are. Confirmations of a truth he's been trying to deny. His soul is waking up, and it's waking up because you stopped trying to wake it. You stopped pushing. You stopped chasing. You stepped back into your own energy, and in doing so, you created a vacuum. And nature, energy, the universe, it all abhors a vacuum. It rushes in to fill the space. When you were chasing, your energy was everywhere, filling all the space between you, actually making it easier for him to remain passive, to stay hidden, to let you do all the work of holding the connection. But when you withdrew, when you pulled your energy back into yourself and focused it on your own wholeness, you created an emptiness where your seeking used to be. And that emptiness pulls at him in ways your chasing never could. It draws him forward, not because you're trying to draw him, but because energy naturally moves to restore balance. Your absence becomes more powerful than your presence ever was. The space you've created becomes an invitation he can't ignore, a question his soul must answer. He starts to feel restless in his current life. The job that used to fulfill him feels empty. The relationship he thought would distract him feels hollow. The walls he built to protect himself start to feel suffocating. There's a growing sense of dissatisfaction, of something being fundamentally wrong, fundamentally misaligned. The things he thought he wanted, the life he thought he was building, the identity he thought would make him happy, they all start to feel like a costume that doesn't fit anymore. He becomes irritable, distracted, unable to settle into the life he's created. The relationship he may have entered to forget you, to prove he could move on, to convince himself the connection wasn't that significant, it starts to feel like a prison. He looks at this person beside him and feels guilty because they're not you, because they don't understand him the way you did, because being with them requires him to hide parts of himself that you always saw and accepted. The job that once gave him purpose feels mechanical, meaningless. The friends he surrounds himself with feel superficial. The routines he's established feel like distractions rather than fulfillment. He doesn't know why, but he feels like something is missing. And deep down in the part of him that he's been avoiding, he knows what it is. It's you. It's the connection. It's the truth he's been running from. It's the depth, the authenticity, the soul recognition that he experienced with you and hasn't found anywhere else. And the more you embody your truth, the harder it becomes for him to avoid his. As you rise into your power, as you heal and integrate and become more fully yourself, The frequency you emit becomes clearer, stronger, more undeniable. And that frequency highlights everything in his life that isn't aligned with his truth. It becomes a mirror he can't avoid, reflecting back to him all the ways he's betrayed himself, all the ways he's chosen fear over love, all the ways he's settled for less than what his soul truly wants. This is not about making him suffer. This is not about revenge or proving a point. This is simply the natural consequence of energetic alignment. When you rise, the field rises. And when the field rises, everything that is not in alignment with that frequency becomes unbearable. It's not that you're trying to punish him or make him uncomfortable. It's that your elevation in consciousness, your movement into wholeness, your embodiment of self-love and truth, it creates a frequency that naturally exposes everything that isn't vibrating at that same level. His resistance becomes unbearable. His fear becomes unbearable. His separation from you becomes unbearable. The walls he built to protect himself, they start to feel less like protection and more like isolation. The fear that kept him running, it starts to feel less like safety and more like cowardice. The separation he created, it starts to feel less like freedom and more like the deepest loneliness he's ever known. What he thought was protecting him is actually suffocating him. What he thought was keeping him safe is actually keeping him from the one thing his soul truly wants. And eventually, the pain of staying in the illusion becomes greater than the fear of stepping into truth. That's when he moves. That's when he reaches out. That's when he finally surrenders. Not because you manipulated him or forced him or convinced him, but because his soul can no longer tolerate the dissonance between where he is and where he knows he needs to be. The pain of separation finally outweighs the fear of vulnerability. The ache of living a half-life finally becomes more unbearable than the risk of showing up fully. And in that moment, he makes the choice his soul has been begging him to make all along. But here's the key, and this is where so many people misunderstand the concept of moving first. You cannot move first with the intention of making him come back, because that's still attachment. That's still manipulation. That's still coming from lack. If you're choosing yourself as a strategy to get him to choose you, you haven't actually chosen yourself at all. You're still making him the center, still making his response the measure of your success, still abandoning yourself in service of an outcome you're trying to control. You must move first because it's your truth, because your soul is complete with waiting, because you are ready to live fully, regardless of what he does or doesn't do. You must move first because staying where you are has become more painful than the uncertainty of stepping forward. Because the woman you're becoming can no longer tolerate the smallness of waiting for someone else to give her permission to live. You must move first because you are honoring the woman you've become through this journey. The woman who has walked through fire and emerged stronger, who has faced her shadows and integrated her light, who has learned to love herself in ways she never knew were possible. And that woman, that sovereign, embodied, radiant woman, she doesn't wait for anyone. She creates, she loves, she lives, and in her fullness she becomes irresistible. Not because she's trying to be, but because wholeness always is. Wholeness has a frequency that is magnetic not because it seeks attention, but because it is complete unto itself. And completion, true self-sufficiency, the energy, of someone who is full rather than empty, that is the most attractive force in the universe. Not the false confidence that masks insecurity, not the performance of having it all together, but the genuine state of being at home in yourself, of being at peace with who you are, of being so anchored in your own worth that external validation becomes irrelevant. So if you're feeling the call right now, if your body is telling you it's time, if the restlessness has become too loud to ignore, trust it. Trust that this is your soul's way of saying you are ready. Your body knows before your mind does. The restlessness you feel, the discomfort with where you are, the growing sense that you can't stay in this holding pattern anymore, that's not weakness. That's not impatience. That's your soul's wisdom breaking through, telling you that you've outgrown this phase, that you've learned what you needed to learn here, that it's time to step into the next level of your becoming, ready to move first, ready to embody union, ready to stop waiting and start becoming. This is not the end of the journey. This is the beginning of the final stage, the stage where everything you've learned, everything you've healed, everything you've become, finally integrates into a frequency so powerful that union is no longer a hope. It's an inevitability. All the shadow work you've done, all the patterns you've broken, all the ways you've learned to love yourself, all the moments you've chosen your truth over comfort, they've been building to this. They've been preparing you for this level of embodiment, this level of frequency, this level of magnetic power. And now you're ready to bring it all together, to integrate all those pieces into a coherent whole, into a version of yourself that doesn't just hope for union, but embodies it so completely that its physical manifestation becomes a natural consequence. And here's what I want you to understand about this final stage. It's not about him anymore. It's about you. It's about whether you're willing to trust yourself enough to step into your power without needing external validation. Every stage before this has been preparation, but this stage is about embodiment. This is where you prove to yourself that you truly believe what you've been learning. This is where you demonstrate that your worth isn't dependent on his recognition, that your wholeness isn't dependent on his return, that your capacity to live fully isn't dependent on his participation. It's about whether you're willing to live as the woman who knows her worth, who honors her truth, who embodies love not as something she seeks, but as something she is. Can you be love even when love isn't being reflected back to you in the form you want? Can you be whole even when the person who feels like your other half is absent? Can you be complete even when the connection that awakened you is dormant? Because that woman, she doesn't need him to complete her. She's already complete. And in her completion, she becomes the invitation he's been waiting for. The invitation to come home, not to her, but to himself. And when he comes home to himself, he will find you there, waiting not in desperation, but in wholeness. Her completion gives him permission to find his own. Her wholeness shows him what's possible. Her embodiment of union within herself becomes the template, the frequency, the energetic blueprint that calls him into his own integration. And when he finally does the work to come home to himself, when he finally chooses truth over fear, when he finally steps into his own wholeness, he'll find that you've been there all along, not waiting for him to complete you, but holding a space of such profound wholeness that his own completion naturally aligns with yours. This is the sacred design. The feminine moves first because she can, because she's strong enough to hold the frequency before it manifests. Because her intuition is sharper, her heart is braver, her soul is more willing to trust the unseen. The feminine principle, the receptive force, is not passive as so many have misunderstood. The feminine is the one who can hold the vision when there's no evidence. The feminine is the one who can trust the invisible, who can believe in what hasn't yet manifested, who can maintain faith when logic says to give up. The feminine moves first because she has direct access to soul wisdom, to intuitive knowing, to the realm of energy that precedes physical form. She feels the truth before it becomes visible. She knows the destination before the path appears. She holds the frequency of what's coming before there's any proof it's on its way. And when she moves, when she rises, when she embodies the truth of union within herself, the masculine has no choice but to follow. Not because she forced him, not because she manipulated him, but because energy always seeks balance. And when she becomes the embodiment of union, he is pulled toward that frequency like a magnet. It's not a choice, it's a law. It's as inevitable as gravity, as certain as the tides responding to the moon. The masculine principle, the active force, is designed to respond to the frequency the feminine holds. When she holds lack, he mirrors it. When she holds desperation, he runs from it. But when she holds wholeness, when she embodies completion, when she radiates the frequency of union, he is drawn to it with a force that bypasses his conscious mind, that overrides his fear, that makes resistance impossible. So, beloved, let this be your reminder. You were never waiting for him. You were always waiting for yourself. Waiting for the moment when you would be brave enough to stop looking outside for validation and start anchoring into the truth that lives inside you. Every moment you thought you were waiting for him to text, to call, to come back, to choose you, you were actually waiting for yourself to become brave enough to choose you. Every moment you thought you needed his confirmation, you were actually waiting for yourself to confirm your own worth. Every moment you thought you needed him to see you, you were actually waiting for yourself to truly see yourself. Waiting for the moment when you would choose your own wholeness over the illusion of incompleteness. Waiting for the moment when you would trust that your embodiment is enough to shift the field, to call him home, to create the union your soul has been aching for. This is the moment where you stop believing the lie that you're half of something and start knowing the truth that you're already whole. This is the moment where you stop waiting for someone else to make you complete and start recognizing that you've been complete all along. This is the moment where you trust that who you are, what you've become, the frequency you hold, it's enough. Tell me in the comments, have you felt this call to move first? What shifted in your journey when you stopped waiting and started embodying? Your story may be the confirmation another soul needs to hear today. And remember, you are not alone in this. You are held, you are seen, you are divinely guided, and the universe is orchestrating everything in perfect timing. Trust the call, trust yourself, and trust that when the feminine moves first, union is already on its way.